Okay, so we are calling the Planning and Development meeting of November 14th to order. We're doing the roll call. Councilmember Nguyen? Okay. Councilmember Nusma?
Here.
Councilmember Burns?
Here.
Councilmember Hedekaris?
Here.
And I'm sorry, I skipped over Councilmember Ravel. I was looking at the list and not at
Here.
the people. Myself, Councilmember Reed here, and Councilmember Kelly is here, but will be joining us shortly. Okay.
And Chair
and-
Reed, I am here.
Okay, and
This is-
thank you. And Councilmember Nguyen is also here virtually. Wonderful. With a quorum, we're ready to start our business. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the minutes of the regular Planning and Development Committee meeting of October 24th.
Wonderful. Second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Ravel. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And I'm sorry, were there any amendments to the minutes, any discussion on them? No? Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passes. That brings us to item P1, ordinance 111-022, granting a special use for planned development with site development allowances and a special use permit for a kennel located at 222 and 2310 Oakton Street in the I-2 General Industrial District. Is there a motion? Moved by Councilmember Ravel, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Nusma. Is there any discussion on this item? And I'm sorry, I 100% skipped over public comment.
Let's finish this and then go back.
Yeah. Okay, is there any discussion on this item?
Yep.
Seeing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. We will move to public comment. And for that, the first person up is Will Flatt, who's speaking to item P2. And you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me. I would hope that of the many things that come before this committee, this would be one that doesn't have much controversy, and we can all agree of the many benefits for lots of constituencies. I think the interest of UL in Evanston is a testimony to its past and really also to its future in terms of the attractive amenities and infrastructure it offers to organizations. As a national investor in office buildings, the world has changed. I can tell you it has been a sea change, and it can be very much a downward spiral as companies contract, office buildings are vacant, retail goes vacant, tax revenue falls, both property and sales. This is a chance to go the other direction. An internationally recognized brand where companies will follow. Companies and organizations tend to like to go where other organizations are, can actually create retail activity, create retail revenue, create excitement, and I would hope that would give consideration to help make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brian Whitley, or Whiting, I'm sorry. Brian Whiting. Okay, we'll move on to the next person. If he comes back, we'll give him an opportunity. Ken Swanson. Kent or Ken?
Ken.
Kent, okay. Kent Swanson. All right. Okay, and Kent Swanson is not here. All right. Well, wonderful. We will. Is there anyone else who wants to give? I'll give one open call. Is there anyone else who wants to give public comment? We have one gentleman there, one taker. Hello.
Good evening. My name is Brian Whiting. I'm here to speak about the signage installation on the Orrington building. Excuse me. I have been up here many times over the years because I'm a longtime resident of Evanston. I live in the First Ward, and I'm usually up here hoping to protect something that was proposed for my ward. Tonight, though, I'm here to talk in support of the signage installation on the Orrington building. I am not only a resident of this building, but I also own the largest real estate company that represents landlords for office leasing in the city of Chicago. And I'm here to talk a little bit about what's going on in that market with work from home and the shrinkage of the use of office space as a result. My company represents about 26 million square feet of office space in downtown Chicago. It includes the old post office, the Willis Tower, and Aon. And I can tell you from experience that we are now experiencing a very large decrease in the use of office space. We estimate that when it all settles out, we will only be utilizing about 65% of all the office space to accommodate the same number of employees of companies that used to occupy it. So here in Evanston, Evanston is not immune to that same situation. And as a result, finding new tenants for office building has become very difficult. When you have an opportunity to bring a company like UL into the city of Evanston with a 50,000 square foot lease, which in today's market read like 150,000 square feet 3 years ago, it's very important that you seize on that opportunity because there's going to be fewer and farther between with opportunities to fill office space. When office space doesn't fill, it doesn't collect rents, values of properties go down, tax base goes down.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
And you're champ for hitting those stairs and then coming in
Yeah,
and
right.
giving public
I was in the
comment.
parking lot when they called me, so I ran through. But one last comment though.
Sure, go
Just
ahead.
please, the signage put forth is appropriate. It's any municipality in this state would approve that signage packet for UL to bring those jobs in. Pay more taxes. Keep my taxes lower. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back out. Kent Swanson is here. Is that Kent? No, that is not Kent. Gentlemen, sir, you feel free to come up.
Thank you. My name is Matt Kavanaugh. I'm with ARC Real Estate. I actually represent the landlord as well as Mr. Flatt, who spoke previously, in Family Properties here in town. I represent typically retail space, and we've really struggled, in downtown Chicago because there's no one left. If you go down there, it's scary, not just because they don't talk about the crime, but just there's no one there. And we experienced some of that too in tours we've had of our spaces, especially when Northwestern's not in session. So, we're getting people looking at our space and deciding to not come to Evanston because they're a little nervous about the seasonality of the retail. And so bringing, a large 50,000 square foot office user will do a lot to bring demand just, to downtown Evanston as a whole, because right now we're really seeing Church Street Plaza and Sherman. I've probably got 8 or 10 people that have looked at the NAF and say, we're going to wait for Sherman. But if you bring, a large amount of office users, you're going to start forcing these restaurants' hand, and they're going to come. So I'd hope that you consider strongly to make this happen. And thanks for your time.
Thank you. Wonderful. Seeing no further public comment, we will move on to our agenda. We have already voted on item P1, and that was approved. We now are on item P2, ordinance 119-022, approving zoning relief for Underwriters Laboratory signage at 1603 Orrington Avenue in the D3 district. May I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Ravel. Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will express my strong support for this ordinance, and I look forward to welcoming such a prestigious organization as UL into our downtown. regardless of who the employer is, bringing 200 highly paid employees to downtown Evanston is something we desperately need in this current economic environment. In addition to the 200 mostly in the office employees, we're going to have, I don't know if the appropriate term would be dozens or scores or maybe even hundreds of visitors coming through town on a regular basis, which are even really more attractive to our local economy in terms of hotel and restaurant business. So regardless of the employer, this is an opportunity we should jump at. The fact that it's Underwriters Laboratories, an internationally respected brand, well-known brand. Look at, hold up the power supply to your computer. UL is on this. UL is on the bottom of this computer. UL is on this thing right here. UL is already in Evanston. Let's bring their headquarters here. And hey, if they need to have a sign on the building, we want to make sure it's done tastefully, done appropriately, done in a bird-friendly way. I think we are checking all those boxes, and I, heartily endorse this proposal and look forward to taking action on it tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm also very excited to have UL move one of their branches of their headquarter to Evanston. This is wonderful, our city, for our businesses. Although I don't quite understand. I mean, this is our UL folks here. If you could speak to it, I don't understand quite. We have other businesses that are headquartered here, such as ZS Associates, Magnetar, Rotary. None of them have insisted on what I feel is really sort of defacing one of the few large buildings in town that I really do value, George Shipperate, the architect who worked with Mies van der Rohe. And this building really does have some elements, sort of the elegant, simple lines, somewhat of an industrial look, and the thought to me of putting a royal blue lit up sign and a lime green on one side. I'd like to understand why this is so important for Underwriter Laboratory to do this on the top of the building. I don't understand. I understand you can take pictures of it, maybe that, and put it in your annual report, but I would hope you would still want to move to Evanston and respect our skies, our skyscape, and as well as our buildings, particularly this piece of architecture, and reconsider. I'm a little bit at a loss as to why this has to be this way, why you can't have sort of the what we have down below. The Chase Bank has sort of a kiosk as well as Magnetar, why we have to have that lit up logo on the top of the building. Is there someone who could speak to why this is so necessary and why you wouldn't move to Evanston if you couldn't put a royal blue lit up UL sign on the top?
If I can ask for staff or Councilmember Nusma to maybe be able, or, okay. Oh, okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Donna Pugh with Foley and Lardner in Chicago. We actually have a few remarks we'd like to make, if that's okay, and I think it would fit more wholly into the whole framework rather than just the one question.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, we'll be as very brief as we
Ms. Pugh
can.
does represent the applicant.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So really, what I'd like to do is introduce Terry Brady, who's the CEO of UL Research Institutes, to talk to you about why he feels that he and the board need the signage. Would that be appropriate?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terry?
If we can, okay, I guess that's answering Claire's question, so.
Honorable council members and staff, good evening. My name is Terry Brady, and it's my honor to serve as CEO and president of UL Research Institutes, which you'll know as Underwriters Laboratories, and as board chair of UL Standards and Engagement. And council member, I'll do my best to make sure I address your question, and if it's less than clear, please ask for clarification. As the council member noted, we're a 128-year-old organization with nearly 16,000 colleagues around the globe, carrying out our mission to help create a safer, more secure, and sustainable world for people everywhere. And since 1979, we've been headquartered in Northbrook at 333 Finkston Road. And if you've driven on the spur between the Edens and the Tri-State Expressway, you'll have seen our campus and the existing signage with a kind of an enormous red Underwriters Laboratories lit sign across the way. We're not coming close to looking for something like that here. Earlier this year, we announced the establishment of 3 new UL brands, united in our mission for a safer world: UL Research Institutes, UL Standards and Engagement, and UL Solutions. Each organization executes our shared mission in different ways. UL Research Institutes, the parent company, or ULRI, senses risk and helps accelerate discovery of fundamental safety science knowledge. UL Standards and Engagement, or ULSE for short, amplifies our safety science research and turns knowledge into action to make us all safer. And finally, UL Solutions helps businesses bring safe and sustainable products to market, like the ones the council member pointed out, through safety testing, inspection, and certification. Now, also earlier this year, we announced, as you may have read, a $1.8 billion commitment to address increasingly complex global safety challenges and support our growth through increased funding of both ULRI and ULSE. And our discussion this evening then relates to new headquarters for these 2 UL organizations. To expand our capacity, ULRI and ULSE are joining together to establish a headquarters office space with room to grow beyond our very full Northbrook campus. We've selected Orrington Plaza in Evanston as an ideal location for our new combined headquarters, given that this new space is uniquely situated in a vibrant metropolitan area with a well-educated and diverse resident employee population, close proximity to prestigious universities, excellent public transportation, of course our beautiful Lake Michigan, and many locally owned businesses and restaurants. We've been happy in Northbrook for many years, but we're out of space. And frankly, we're looking for a more transit-oriented location where our employees, our visiting scholars, and stakeholders can more easily get to and from our headquarters without needing to either drive their own car or take a single regional rail line and then a shuttle bus. I feel strongly that Evanston is that location because I'm a 4th-generation Evanstonian myself. I was born here and raised in Northwest Evanston on Chancellor Street and Park Place, and I attended Haven School. Now, we all know that metropolitan Chicago is suffering from businesses leaving for other cities and states, and we're proud not only to announce publicly our commitment to this community of Evanston, but we want the people of Evanston to feel that commitment as well. We want to join Northwestern and many other local institutions in supporting STEM education, STEM careers, and civic and cultural life here in Evanston. So as the council understands, we envision 2 signs, one for UL Research Institutes and one for UL Standards and Engagement at the top of our proposed space. Why do we want these signs? We want them because they would showcase our pride and commitment to establishing our new headquarters in Evanston, and we want people, when they see our logos, to know that we are united in our shared mission of working for a safer city and a safer world. And when they look up at Orrington Plaza, we want Evanstonians to take pride in the knowledge that we're doing that work right here from our headquarters in Evanston, Illinois. And we look at the ground level signs as directional and welcoming signage for many visiting stakeholders. Because the current freestanding signs are full, we're requesting tasteful new signage announcing our presence at the street level. So why are these signs important to UL? To come to the council member's very important question, and as we plan to move our headquarters to Evanston. Let me outline 4 reasons why this is important to us. 1, we're justifiably proud of our 130-year-old safety mission, our 16,000 colleagues that work around the sun, right, never stopping. As we sleep here, our colleagues in Asia or Europe are carrying through our mission. And we're proud of the iconic brand that citizens look for when choosing products. Number 2, we currently maintain what we believe to be tasteful and appropriate signage in Northbrook and our many other locations around the world. We have signs that announce our presence tastefully and appropriately in facilities large and small across the globe. Number 3, the signage of the type we propose here is readily available in the many other Chicago and suburban locations we've been evaluating. So when I tell my board this is not an issue in the other buildings we're looking at, they are hopeful and expectant that we can work this out in Evanston. Finally, as a frequent convener of key stakeholder gatherings, again, as a council member sort of signaled, numbering from 25 at a time to over 500 at a time. One thing that I'm very proud of UL, but I always want to get across to people that while we've been at this for 130 years and we have a lot of knowledge, we don't have all the answers. And so we make the world safer better when we bring others in from academia, from the government, from manufacturing, code regulators like your electric officials here in town, and consumer organizations. When we work together and convene people, as an example, we regularly convene chemical companies, but also the manufacturers of children's clothes or furniture makers and chemical makers. Everyone wants a sofa that's fire safe, comfortable, and affordable. It's very easy to solve any two legs of that triangle, but try to solve all three. These people meet each other in court, but they'll come to UL and have a meeting together because they know that we're a trusted, neutral convener. So we want to have people who would come to our Northbrook offices very regularly, and we rent big hotels like the Big Westin out in Wheeling for very large meetings. Well, we want to do that here in Evanston. One floor of our proposed space will be entirely a convening floor for stakeholders who will help us be more impactful and relevant in addressing increasingly complex safety challenges. And of course, these visitors will bring significant travel, food, and entertainment dollars to the Evanston economy. So I hope that answers the question, and now with your consent, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our Chief Operating Officer, Dr.
If we can, I appreciate it. I wonder if we can continue the discussion up here, and if we have questions, then we can reach back out to the group. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Great. So again, I want to reiterate that I am very, very happy that UL is planning to move to Evanston, although I am extremely disappointed that UL can't respect our codes and our skylines and this George Shippery building like our other companies that are headquartered here. So that I'm disappointed. I'd like to really understand what the negative impact would be for UL not to put those logos on the top of the building. And, I just wonder how much you've been versed about this architect who was a colleague of Mies van der Rohe. I think that building does have sort of a Miesy look to it. And, he also designed the Lake Point Tower. He co-designed the Lake Point Tower. So this is a significant architecture for us in Evanston. So again, just to reiterate, I'm happy to have that UL wants to move here, very happy for everything that you represent and that you do, but I'm very disappointed that you're insistent on doing this in our city, and I wish you would also respect like these other companies that are headquartered here who have not asked for such a thing. So, thank you. And if at some point maybe you can explain the negative impact of what would happen to UL if you didn't put that at the top of that building.
Well,
thank you.
I guess I have another council member with the light on, but is that your direct question you want them to respond to?
I'd go ahead with the other
Okay.
council members.
Councilmember Burns.
I think the number I heard was like bringing 150 to 200 employees in Evanston.
200 employees, 200 or so employees, plus the additional visitors, which could be hundreds at a time.
And in terms of the work policy, I only ask this because of COVID, in terms of what is the work policy around hybrid, how long, when somebody can work from home versus. I queued them up, see? There we go.
First of all, thank you for your letting us have time to address these issues. My name is Tim Rebelli. I'm the general counsel of these two organizations. These are tax-exempt charities, so they're not for-profit companies. And earlier this year, we announced publicly a $1.8 billion kind of endowment for these two structures. So we're looking for a long-term home. I'm going to say anybody that's going forward with office space in this environment has to look at remote working And there's a bit of a risk of making the kind of investment we're talking about in any kind of a rental space. And we're we could move in a lot of locations. We're probably going to end up, we have kind of a flexible policy right now where we're going to have certain requirements where people have to work in the office, but we're going to have to be flexible in this day and age and allow people to work remotely. As a charity organization, whatever community we go to, I'll give you an example. We have a very distinguished board. One of them's an MIT provost. The first thing he did when he heard about this building is he Googled up 1603. He noticed Northwestern was in it. There was signage for that. And he's like, well, what kind of signage are we going to get? Because we're in a brand launch right now for our charitable science organizations. That's important for our trustees. So we go to them and say, 40% vacancies across the Chicago market. We could go to Skokie, we could go downtown. There's reasons why we want to come here, and if we come here, we're going to be a good corporate citizen. We have a track record at Northbrook of supporting things like the symphony, local, the Arboretum. We've invested a tremendous amount in things like STEM education. We have a huge program with Case Western University that offers plenty of high school students an opportunity. So we're an attractive tenant, and we're looking to go somewhere to sink our roots in. We're not a for-profit company. So when we put that sign up there, part of what we're trying to do is establish our presence. And the first thing that provost said is, you're in the shadow of Northwestern. What are you going to do to make yourself distinct in this community if you come here? Well, if we go to Chicago, if we go to the Old Orchard area, if we go to some of the other areas that are options to us, we're not going to have these kinds of issues about signage. So we went with what we believe to be a dignified sign. We didn't put our name across the building. We've got experts from various sources to help us design this in a way where the lighting, everything about it is trying to be designed in a way that's going to be environmentally friendly. We've got a turn off at 11 o'clock. So we have a board meeting later this week. So, that you have to do your deliberative process and follow what you think. But, we're interested in making a long-term commitment here. But if we go to our board and say, we've been through 3 hearings, the last one was 11 o'clock at night, we're still having trouble getting what we want done here to make sure we can answer our trustees' questions about this, but we're still open-ended and it's not done. We're like everybody else in the global economy that's present today, right? We're all looking into 2023 trying to figure out what's going to happen. So I just think that in terms of our options, we'd like to come here directionally. We are working with everybody here in the city to do this in a way that's going to be environmentally friendly and everything. So I would hope that, we've answered your question, but having that insignia, that label, that logo on that building is important to the people at our company and at the trustee level. And so that's why we're, going down the path we're going to. It was one of the first questions that they asked when we looked at the site. You can disagree with it and say, well, I don't think we should have the logo there. If that's the decision that we face in this community, then the people that run our organization, the fiduciaries that manage these tax-exempt charities, are going to have to consider the significance of that, and we don't control that. We've done everything we can to make this happen. If I can answer any questions later, or I'd be happy to address them. But I just wanted to kind of give you a perspective on how we're trying to approach this. And there is a convener dimension to what we're doing. It's not just the 200 employees. The Green UL has over 1,500 standards technical panels with members from government, industry, science groups, and those standards impact, as you mentioned, council member, all sorts of products across almost every industry. And we're a not-for-profit organization with 2 slightly different missions, all focused on improving human safety. We're charitable organizations. So this is not a commercial thing. It's part of what we're trying to do to establish our presence and our brand. Okay? Thank you.
So, and I appreciate all that information. Thank you. So 200 employees, what are we really looking at on a day-to-day basis?
And just for management of time, if we can be a bit concise with answers.
Not a problem. Yeah, I think what we're looking at is, there will be some times where there'll be more than 200 in Evanston because we'll have a meeting or something. But, we're going to probably start off with some kind of a flex policy where we'll be expecting people to be in at least 3 days a week. And there might be some exceptions to that, and how we stagger that. We're going to build, like every company, as Mr. Brady mentioned, one floor will be basically general office, kind of gathering space, but all of our offices are designed for work flex and remote. So the goal is to get obviously as much occupancy as we can out of the space we're making an investment in.
So by and large, though, 3 days a week for all the 150.
Might be 100
employees.
people to 150, sometimes getting up over 200 when we convene. Both organizations have separate missions, so they're going to have different reasons to convene meetings.
Yeah.
The green would be meeting for standards type activities. The blue is a research. We have a relationship with Northwestern, so we made a substantial commitment with them in the digital area already. So but that isn't like an investment just in Northwestern. It's a hub. So we have 30 universities that have submitted requests for proposals from all over the United States just to work in that area, and we're funding it. So that will be duplicated in 4 or 5 research areas. That's what UL Blue is about.
And how long is the lease?
The lease is a long-term lease. I think the first term, it seems like it's 11 years.
Come on,
Are
Bobby.
there-
Sound intelligent.
Are there any conferences that UL puts together
Sure.
on a regular basis, and could Evanston potentially be the site of such a conference?
Yes. Some of the conferences I've been involved in, we do one with Interpol that's really about anti-counterfeiting, and that's law enforcement. And generally, they like to do a location because of the global dimension of it outside the United States. We did have one at the United Nations. I don't know if we could get them to do a U.S. location. But we have many, many different kinds of accreditations, and Mr. Brady, I think, is ready to address the
Right.
specifics.
A great question, Council Member. Just briefly and mindful of time, as my colleague mentioned, our 1,500 safety standards, when UL first got into this business of helping develop safety standards, UL engineers would write them out and hand them down like the mountain, coming off the mountain. Now every one of these standards has a panel of 50 to 75 people. It's like lawmaking, regulation making. So the standards panel's 1,500 standards times 50 people. So we could have a lot of stakeholder meetings of our standards, we call them standards technical panels, STPs. Every spring we do an annual meeting, and we've been having it at this big hotel in Wheeling because it's 400 or 500 people. And as I said to the Land Use Committee, we're deeply interested in what's the future and story with places like the Orrington Hotel, because we're going to be looking for major conference space. I'm delighted to see there's a new hotel, maybe on Chicago Avenue, a Hyatt or something. But our board, our board meeting this week, Mr. Ravelli referred to, it's downtown at the Four Seasons. Well, next year I'd like to have our board meeting here in Evanston. So I hope that answers the question. We do a lot of meetings because, as I said earlier, we don't have all the answers. We do better work when we convene others, and we're a trusted convener. So these aren't conventions, right? This is not like the dentist or something, but it's scientists and stakeholders and people like you coming together to give input and help make the world safer together.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And this next question is to staff, because I haven't been able to review the last Land Use Commission meeting on this, but what was their comments specifically on the precedent that this would set and their concern that this wasn't conforming to our current zoning code? I saw a list of, if we do support this, here are the things we'd like to see, but did not get a chance to see what their concerns were around precedent setting.
Great question. Liz Williams, Planning Manager with the Community Development Department. As it relates to precedent setting, there were comments made that this particular request is on the largest, tallest building within the city of Evanston. And so they didn't feel as though another request would be similar to this, given the unique character of this particular building and the height that it currently is. There is not another building like this in Evanston. So that was part of their discussion.
Can you explain that a bit more? Because my concern was that the policy, I think, will require 2 through that they have every floor starting at the second floor all the way at the top.
Correct.
And I think they're going to have the 3 top floors.
That is correct.
So my read was it seems like it was the opposite. It feels like there would be quite a bit of people who will request a sign if we allow this to move forward. So what am I missing?
So for this particular request, they also added a condition that no other tall building identification signs would be permitted on this particular building. And they also discussed that when and if UL decides to relocate out of this building, that the signage would have to be removed. So any future requests would have to come through the Land Use Commission for review if they would seek a similar circumstance.
So outside of the Chase building, there's no other building like this where somebody will request a sign at this height?
Correct, because of the height of this particular
Nothing
building.
even, I'm trying to think
To
about the
be,
landscape.
just
but-
to be clear, the reason is because that just so happens to be the tallest building in the city.
No, I mean, but I'm trying to think about our skyline to see if there's any not as tall buildings that are as tall as that, but any other buildings that someone would say, okay, well, we currently occupy 3 floors as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now we want to put a sign on the building that we occupy.
Right. I think the circumstances around that particular request would be unique to that building and to the request being proposed by the applicant at that time. The Land Use Commission did review this as it relates to kind of the current vacancy rates post-pandemic and the unique circumstances that we are currently under in terms of the office market. And that was, one of the biggest things with their decision and their discussion was centered around that topic.
And then the last question is around public benefits. I'm not sure if that has come up yet, but I don't know if anybody from UL wants to talk about any discussion they're willing to have about public benefits around this. And the reason why I say that is because everything you said is great, but a commitment to workforce development, a commitment that more directly invests in Evanston residents is different from just saying we're going to add 200 employees downtown to the shop. All that is great, but especially since I think the president said he has went to Haven as I did as well. I think really showing that commitment is can we do something that directly invests in Evanston residents around workforce or any other area?
Yes, and I think our COO Charlotte Farmer could address this, but your request for we will be involved in working with the city, with the high school. I happen to be on the board of North Shore Elmhurst, right? I know they're very active in workforce development and things like that. Those kinds of charitable actions are consistent with our charitable mission. One of the things we support is the development of opportunities for especially people that don't have the opportunity to pursue a science career. So, that's something we've already done. So, we've got a very large high school. I'm sure they have a need for those kinds of programs, and we would look to coordinate with the city to get guidance as to how can we best, that's the way we're going to act here as a corporate citizen. So if we come to this community, make a long-term commitment like this, we're interested in becoming a good member of the community. So I think STEM education efforts and other efforts like that, I don't know how many laboratory type things we're going to have, but we have a lot of offices all around the world too with our affiliates, and we would be a long-term tenant, and we would make that kind of commitment to interact with people to get the right kind of guidance as to how can we best impact things as we move into Evanston. That would be part of what we would plan to accomplish.
And obviously, this is the last thing. This agreement will be kind of a good faith effort towards the kind of stated goals. But would that scare y'all off to say an actual agreement, a community benefits agreement?
I mean, I think that maybe our trustees might not react well to quid pro quo, but I can assure you this is an area that all of us on the executive level we already do things with several high schools. We have interns. We've made.
I don't know why they would feel concerned because what's being requested as well today is a variance, and I think with other variances, the topic of public benefits comes up. So I don't want them to think that there's.
We're open to doing that. What form that takes is something that we'd have to be kind of guided as to what your practices are. I mean, this is something that you would normally include. I mean, we're very open to working with the communities that we're in. We've done it in Northbrook. To the degree we've had people coming from some of the local high schools that have had internship programs. We're very interested as we grow our sciences, particularly in the blue area. We're going to have doctoral students and other students like that. So they're going to have a need to have assistants and people like that. So I think that there's a number of charitable organizations that we already work with in these kinds of areas. We have a group in the blue that's basically dedicated to education programs in that in school that already are doing some work like that with high schools. So we're very open to that kind of a public benefit. I mean, there's a lot of other, I think, public benefits that would come from our presence in the community, but that would be one of the areas that would be very consistent with our charitable purpose.
Yeah, that's great. And Northwestern also makes the same case, and which I think is
Sure.
true. In addition to that, I think they've set up the Good Neighbor Fund, and then
Sure.
recently they've gone beyond that to do some other equity work in the community, supporting different agencies. So we can make those introductions. But
As
I think that
Councilmember
is,
Burns, I assure
Yeah.
you that if we come to Evanston and get this all falls into place, we will be a very active participant in the community in those kinds
thank
of
you.
areas.
That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few lights. I have one member who has not yet spoken, and that's Councilmember Nguyen. So Councilmember Nguyen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very excited about this opportunity. I think that we're operating in a different world now in terms of how our city is going to continue to thrive. We aren't going to necessarily have the same people in our downtown every single day, Monday through Friday. But I think to have this kind of commitment from this type of organization is very exciting. And I can see lots of opportunities for interaction with our high school and also with our middle schools around STEM issues. So the sign is fine with me. I think it's appropriate. It's a symbol that we all have recognized as a symbol of safety our entire lives. So I'm a very big yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Nguyen. I have two lights on, but I have Councilmember Revelle, who has not yet spoken, so go to Councilmember Revelle.
Well, I just, I guess, want to echo Councilmember Nguyen's comments. I have to say I didn't really know that much about Underwriters Laboratories until you talked to us this evening. You're not just a regular tenant who's just going to be occupying office space, which would be wonderful, but the kinds of work you do and I think the really great benefits and impact that you can bring to Evanston is very exciting, and I'm looking forward to your being here.
Thank you. I have two members who have spoken already. I want to add a few words, and then we'll I think we can start to wrap this up, because I think we've expressed our viewpoints here. I'll start off. I'm in support of the sign. I think there are two or maybe three sides here, where one side just does not fundamentally believe in signage in our skyline. And I get folks who feel that way. Another group is, well, we're fine with signage as long as it's certain companies that that we see as honorable, internationally recognized companies, really respectable companies, and you guys have a pretty nice design for your sign. It's pretty nice. And then lastly, I think where I fall, and maybe others here fall, is I think there need to be certain controls, but my understanding is if someone were to own, as Councilmember Burns pointed out, the second floor through the top floor, they'd by right be able to do this anyhow. And I think maybe we just need to adjust our code to address the concerns that Councilmember Burns brings up, and be a bit more flexible. I think a lot of other communities are. I wouldn't be offended by seeing in fact, I'd be pretty excited to walk to downtown Evanston and see the Google logo atop a building, or Berkshire Hathaway or IBM. I think it would bring some prestige to our community by showing that we're able to attract some of these large businesses. On the other hand, I also am not excited about the framing of why we should be doing this, because it seems as though for while you're a nonprofit, if I've heard it a bunch of times, you're a nonprofit, I'm sure you guys look like a company that makes quite a bit of money and you guys are doing quite well. And so I don't like the idea of us bending our current rules to allow, albeit nonprofit, a big business to what some might characterize as, pollute or litter our skyline with signage. That's not where I am, but I do think that from this, we really need to update our code so we don't have a scenario where we're setting a precedent that someone else can come forward and say, hey, well, I own the top 3 floors of another building. Why can't I put signage up as well? And I think we need to just get a little more thorough with the way that we define this ordinance. If there's anything else, I'd like to move to a vote on this, if possible. Councilmember.
I'll keep it brief.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out again, I want to welcome UL to Evanston. It is very exciting. I want to be very clear about that. But I also want to say, we aren't Northbrook. This is Evanston, and we do have standards and expectations. And I know many of my residents, it's not even so much about large signage as much as about like respecting the architecture. So I'm speaking from that perspective. And I do wish, that you could go back to your trustees and explain, a little bit about Evanston and see if they would reconsider. Again, it's going to be wonderful to have UL in Evanston, but I would like at least that conversation to know that that did take place. And this is precedent. This is the tallest building, so of course it's great to be able to, for you all to put that on the top of the building. But there are other buildings that are tall. There are other buildings that are going to go up in the future, and I'm really concerned that this is going to be a precedent that's not going to, be beneficial for our skyline. And yes, you want to be, you are distinct, and I'm just concerned that you'll have sort of an unfortunate distinction for many residents because of this. So, again, welcome to Evanston. I just ask that you maybe chat a little bit more with your trustees to explain the situation with this building, with this significant piece of architecture in our downtown, and to reconsider, as Chase has with something on the ground floor. So that's all. Thank you.
And it just for
Oh, and also, sorry, public benefit. I am also very concerned
But,
that
yeah,
we
just-
did this without any public benefit. So that's also a concern.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to note, point of information for everyone, so we're level setting, that this is currently listed for introduction and action, and I guess I'll let Councilmember Newsom explain that, and I think it's already been explained, but this is for introduction and action, so we may not have the flexibility.
Introduction and action would be at council, not.
Correct. I mean, for here, it just moves forward anyhow after one vote, but at council, it's for introduction and action,
Right.
which is today.
Correct.
Correct. Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll wrap up and be kind of brief here. And it's not the kind of benefit that Councilmember Burns was talking about, but in much the same way that UL wants to let people know that they are in Evanston, it's a public benefit for Evanston for people to know that UL is here. UL is, the quality of their corporate brand coming to Evanston is going to help attract other business clients, other businesses downsizing perhaps from their downtown Chicago space, looking for more transportation accessible, transit-oriented business space in Evanston. We get UL, it's going to attract more businesses, and that is a public benefit to our local economy. So I'm going to keep it, I'll wrap it up there, and let's move this one forward.
Okay, Councilmember Burns.
Can't let him wrap it up in that note, but I agree with it. But I guess what I'm saying is that I think part of being a good community partner is understanding this. We are having both economic and workforce and housing challenges that are real in the city of Evanston. And will you partner with us to tackle that? That's the question. And I think that's something to get excited about. I think that can help boost morale even within your organization, to let UL, your employees at UL, know that you're not only just coming to a community and to get all the other benefits that Newsma has mentioned, but you're partnering for us to really, you can come, to really make a difference on the workforce front too, because that housing component, the issue is rising costs in Evanston of housing, but it's also, this used to be a place that provided local work to Evanston residents. And I would love UL to join in bringing back that commitment to hiring locally, creating workforce opportunities and careers. And in the end, I think it benefits UL in the first place, right? Like, sometimes it's frustrating to have to advocate for something that ultimately I think is going to make your company stronger. And so I think putting that on paper, whether it's an acknowledgement, whether it's an agreement, I think is really important. But I support the sign. I support more signs, as Councilmember Reed said.
Google, let's get them all.
But again, because this is a variance, I think it is more than appropriate to talk about public benefits. Again, ultimately, public benefits that will make your company stronger.
If I can interject, and I certainly want to hear from you, but I do wonder if we can, I don't think we're not obviously going to have some public benefits agreement negotiated here on the council floor. You can go ahead and speak, but I wonder, what I'd also like to hear on top of the answer to Councilmember Burns' question, so we can just wrap this up, is, there are 5 members here physically, there's 1 member here virtually, I'm sorry, there's more than that, Councilmember Kelly, but there's 5 that I think are clearly in support here. There's 6. It takes 5 votes to pass something on council. I think there's a lot of support for this. I wonder if, if we didn't move this for introduction and just throwing this out here, and it's very clear that we support this, you can go back to your board and say, the city of Evanston wants us here, we support this. If we could have, a week or 2 to actually negotiate a real public benefits agreement. But go ahead.
Thank you for your question. And if 2 weeks are needed, so be it. I offer you evidence of our long history. Evidence that I've been a part of. I was just recruited from D.C., and Ward 8 in D.C. is a opportunity for improvement. And I was the chair of Crittenton Services for Girls, and we took that organization from 60 girls to over 1,000. And I was the chair for 10 years. People like me are at Underwriters Laboratories. Our core values: collaboration, integrity, respect, beneficence. That's basically just doing good research to make the world better. It's in our DNA. We don't need 2 weeks. It's going to happen by the nature of who we are as corporate citizens. And I can look you in the eye with great confidence that my boss, who I've been to like 5 events since he's hired me on the weekends and at night, he's the first one there, and he's contributing to the arts and to STEM. The orchestra, Ravinia, Botanical Gardens, disadvantaged students, GEM, it's graduates engineering for minorities, and more. We don't need 2 weeks to have this conversation. It's just gonna happen, because I'm not gonna rest if it doesn't happen. You'll have to see my face. I was on the elevator coming up on the first day, and I heard somebody talking about STEM, and I took out my card and I said, sign me up. And she said, yeah, we're the digital divas. And I said, well, I'm a digital diva. Sign me up. My nerd was on. This is who's coming to the neighborhood. We are good neighbors, and we want to be a part of the neighborhood. We're not just going to come in and leave. We're going to be here. Like Dr. Brady said, I call him Dr. Brady, the sun never sets on us. We're supporting. Sir, we don't need 2 weeks. We're going to be here and fully engaged. And to your point, Councilman Newsma, you're right. We're tech. Other tech is going to see Evanston. Evanston is going to reflect the work that is done here. The rest of the world will see Evanston as keeping the world safe, secure, and sustainable. The rest of the world is going to look at where we are, and they're going to say Evanstonians are doing this work. We don't need 2 weeks. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I was going to say, I don't necessarily need 2 weeks either. I'm happy to support this. I just think we should pass it and work on a public agreement, benefits agreement with them. And if there's, agreement to do that or some type of acknowledgement, Councilman Newsom, just hold off, then I think, because I want to hear it from them, because I know you just want to get it done. You're advocating for them. You want to get a pass on the stand. But I'm seeing something different in them that I hope this is not scaring you off.
No, not at all. And if I could just indulge for 60 seconds, a couple of thoughts. I said earlier, I believe strongly that Evanston is the right place for us. And it's not just because I grew up here and, I have 8 brothers and sisters that all grew up in Evanston. It's because I want us to have a workforce that carries UL into the next 130 years that better and more closely resembles the world we live in. And we're a little bit self-selecting in Northbrook. I want to be careful because we're leaving a lot of colleagues behind in Northbrook, and I don't want them to be seen as, dissing their work location. But there are a lot of people that we can't hire in Northbrook because they don't have a way to get there. And I love the idea that Evanston, you can get here on the L. I used to take the Evanston bus, Central Street up Sherman Avenue. I could get to a concert, at Northwestern. I'm a music nut, and you can come up from the city on all the rail systems. You don't just have to take Union Station. We mentioned a little bit partnership with Case Western. Well, what that is inner city kids from up against it neighborhoods in Cleveland, we bring to an after-school program at Case Western. UL pays for it, and it shows them what STEM is, what science is. And we just got the first PhD who started in our after-school high school program. I'm deeply involved in Cristo Rey San Martin High School in Waukegan, and that's a work-study model. We have about 5 or 6 jobs that are shared by 4 students each. They're entry-level jobs, but employers, you may be familiar with the Cristo Rey model. There are about 40 of them now around the country. And one of the first things I checked is this still on their route? This is the very furthest we can go and still get kids from Cristo Rey, San Martin. We're too far from the one in Pilsen or from Christ the King. But why does it have to be, again, I'm going to get myself in trouble with Cristo Rey. We could do a similar model with ETHS and have student interns in our program. I think an acknowledgement is something that's easy to work on. I would worry if we're trying to go to a nonprofit board of trustees and say, we have to have a contract, because no other city or town that's trying to recruit us is asking for a contract. But we really mean what we say. We want to invest in Evanston. I want to see kids, after-school kids, coming to our space and learning about what we do. We can bring students in not just through Cristo Rey model, but we could bring kids in from ETHS, from Willard. Maybe that's a little young, but we can get kids. We want to be a good citizen here in Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think if an acknowledgement is all we can do, that's fine. I think and this is really something to staff, please, because so we don't have these tense moments. This is something I really think should be baked into every single discussion like this moving forward. I think might even have a referral about variances and public benefits, because then it just makes it a lot easier, and we don't have to necessarily do this all from the floor. Because I would have loved, and I say this to everybody I have that is making these type of requests, it would have been great to have those conversations with ETHS first, so that in our packet today we could have seen, look, we've already talked about this, we're confident we can, and then instead when we don't get that, now it's here's what I think we can do, or I'd love to see that baked into these type of requests moving forward, and so that we can review that in our packet and feel more confident about it when it gets to the floor for a vote. But again, I'm supportive and an acknowledgement, if that's the best we can do, I think that's fine. But I think just doing that that work, that deliberate work of figuring out what makes sense, connecting them with MEAC, and because I heard a lot of charity stuff, which is great, but charity is different from path to careers. So I just want to make that those are different. Charity is great, but there's also what about the path to careers, to work for Evanston residents, so that they can continue to afford to live here in Evanston. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. With that, no further lights. We'll do a roll call on this. Councilmember Kelly?
No.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel?
Aye.
Councilmember Hedekadis?
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen?
Aye.
And myself, aye. So the motion passes on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1 vote. Okay. 6 to 1, I don't know, something. Did we count?
6 to 1.
Yep, okay.
It's STEM education.
Yep, no, we have P3. So we have one last item. Sorry for the audience. We got one last item to debate, and then we're moving on to council. So may I have a motion on item P3, development at 10, 12 through 18 Church Street, previously authorized by ordinance 14019. We have a motion on that.
So move.
Moved by Councilmember Nusma, seconded by Councilmember Ravel. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Look at that. We got done pretty quick with that last item. All right, so that means our agenda is concluded, and council will start, I don't see the mayor, but I'll just say in 5 minutes.